Flourishing, and we're so glad you've joined us today as we continue our interviews with people who are running for Chattanooga City municipal elections. For the mayor, there's 15, I think, people, or maybe 16 running for mayor, so it's very confusing. There's no incumbent. Mayor Burke is gone, term limited, and then there's 9 council seats, and they all come up at the same time every 4 years. And it's an off-year election, so that affects turnout. So that's why it's important that you know what's going on. And here, we're talking today to candidate Rachael Torrence of District 3, but before we get to her, let me just tell you a couple of things. One, at our website, hamiltonflourishing.org, if you go there, you'll see a picture of all the candidates connected to their website or their Facebook page, and you can, and also these interviews are being, as we're doing, accumulating them, we're adding them to the website. You'll be able to go and actually see what they have to say about themselves, on both the Facebook page, on their website, and then what they have to say in this interview, and of course there's news like crazy. I just heard from the Times Free Press that they're going to do a voter guide as well. So that'll be out there. So there's a lot of information, but we need to get the voters up. We had a 17% turnout in 2017, and that needs to go up. The election is March 2nd. Voter registration ends February the 2nd. Early voting will begin February the 10th and end on February the 25th. So I think there's less than 40 days to the election. So today we're talking to Rachael Torrence. Rachael, we're so glad you could come be with us.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
We're just delighted. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started. Where were you born?
I was actually born in Kentucky.
Oh.
So I lived in Kentucky until the time I was about 15, and then my dad took a job that brought us to Tennessee.
Yeah. And so when did you come to the Chattanooga area?
I came to Chattanooga in 2014. After I got married, my husband is a Chattanooga native, so we decided to come back to Chattanooga.
Okay, so you're married.
I am married.
Have any children?
I have a 5-year-old.
5-year-old. Oh boy. Yeah. What's his name?
His name is David.
David. All right. And where'd you go to school?
For college?
Yeah.
Okay. My college, I went to Tennessee Tech in in Cookeville. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then I also got a master's degree at North Central University, online through I think it's in Arizona somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, great. What do you like to do for fun when you're not running for office?
My family and I we cosplay, so we like to dress up as characters and go to conventions. That's something that's really fun. I like to sew.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never met anybody who actually did that.
We've done quite a few. The last one we did were some Marvel characters. I did Black Widow, and my husband did Nick Fury, while my son did Hulk.
I bet your son just loves this.
He does. He does.
That sounds like fun. That really does. Tell us about District 3. Where is it?
There's a little bit of Highway 58 all the way up to Hickson.
Okay. And I wrote down the precincts, and it's Murray Hills 1 and 2, DuPont, Hickson 2 and 3, and Northwoods 1. Does that sound about right? Yeah. And I didn't tell the listener this. If you go to our website, hamiltonflourishing.org, you can look up with your address where you live, and it will tell you what district you're in. It's connected to the website at the Hamilton County Election Commission. They have the records, and we just put it in there. And you can also register to vote there up until the February the 2nd. So I want to tell you that. That's hamiltonflourishing.org. So Rachael, is this your first time in politics?
It is.
It is. So why do you believe you'd make a good councilwoman?
I feel like millennials are rising up. and it's time for us to step into roles that we never would have seen ourselves in.
Yeah.
I'm a mom, so there's definitely things that I want to see happen in Chattanooga for the safety of my family and for the safety of all Chattanoogans. There's just things that I'd never really thought of before that brought me to where I am.
Have you done anything that's prepared you for this kind of work, either the political side or the governmental side? I mean, you got to govern after you get elected. I mean, they're kind of different things, but.
Right. I actually got involved with some politics by working with campaigns for ballot access laws and personal liberties. That was a big thing that really got me into following politics, and that really just happened over the course of the past 6 months. But I want to be an advocate for people, and I want to be an advocate for our individual rights.
Now, seeing how you've lived here for 8 years now, or 7 years. This may be a tough question, but I want to ask it. I try to ask it, and so you kind of got to stop and think a minute. But what do you think of Chattanooga? And by that I mean, what is the truth about our city? As you kind of analyze it and think about it and reflect on it, I mean, some people say it's a divided city. Some people say it's a patchwork. Some people say, no, we're just evolving and changing. So what do you think when you think about Chattanooga as a whole? What do you see?
Chattanooga is home. Regardless of what your background is, it's a place for us to be home, and that's diversity. It's culture. It's beautiful. I love our city. There are some areas that I want us to improve, and that's helping those that can't help themselves.
Okay. That being the case, tell me what you think is the right direction for Chattanooga during the next 4 years. If you get elected, what do you think is the direction you'd like to see us go?
I'd like to see us go toward personal freedoms.
Okay. Now, when you say personal freedom, are you speaking of that philosophically, or are you speaking of that in terms of? Tell me what you mean by personal freedom.
I feel like our government, from a federal level down, has a tendency of trying to control us, and I think with good faith, most people want to do what's right for themselves without hurting other people. So I've followed the non-aggression principle. I don't want people to be hurt by our government. I feel like they're only supposed to be there to help us.
Huh. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit. So how did that work out? For instance, one of the questions is how the city and the county and the state have handled the COVID crisis. I mean, there's been a lot of conflict, at least in some people's minds, between the health and the liberty sort of thing. So,
right.
Where did you come out on that? Do you think that they did a good job, or do you think they screwed up? Or
I don't think they screwed up. I think that there were some overstepping of bounds. There's not one silver bullet that's going to stop a pandemic, but I feel like overstepping bounds and stepping into businesses whenever the government decided who was essential and who was not, that took away freedoms.
Yeah, that in my mind that was really unfair. Allowing Walmart to stay open and shutting down other stores just so I spent all my free time at Lowe's in the plumbing department. So. I'm just kidding. So what do you think? This is interesting because you're the first more philosophical candidate I've interviewed. What do you think then is the proper role of a local government? Do you have something you can say about that? I mean, is it more hands-on or more hands-off?
I think it's more hands-off.
More hands-off? Okay.
Yeah. I feel like there are things that we want to limit, and there are things that we want to allow people to the freedom to build on. The economy can be better whenever we open up freedoms for business owners to make decisions instead of the government making those decisions.
Yeah. Good for you. What are the top 3 issues for you in this election? What are your top 3? You may have already gone over the one about freedom, but
yeah, freedom is number 1.
Okay.
Number 2 is supporting small businesses, and number 3 is the people.
What do you mean by that?
The people as in every Chattanoogan, not just one specific group. I want us to focus on helping each other, being volunteerists, without being forced.
Yeah. So you'd be an advocate then, and tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth. So you'd be an advocate then for helping people who, for instance, are homeless.
Yes.
But you wouldn't want the government to come in and mandate that kind of help.
No.
Would that be an accurate statement? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So are these one of these? If you were elected and you go in there and you say, "Guys, this is really what I'm all about," what would be the priority one? Would it be one of those?
I would say personal freedoms.
Personal freedom.
Is
Okay.
priority 1.
Have you looked at the budget at all?
I've
The
looked at
city
it some.
budget?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a labyrinth of things. It's very difficult to understand, but they do make it accessible. Do you support any kind of a tax increase?
I don't.
Okay. Good. What do you think? I mean, you can't have a city unless you have some measure of laws. People have to keep contracts. They have to be able to own things, and so you got to have some level of law. You got to protect them from their property and their lives. So there's some levels you got to have. But after you do that, you've really got to have a place where people can live and make a living. You've got to have, so you've got some law and order, and then on that you've got to have economic opportunity. It's kind of a chicken and egg sort of thing, but what do you see could be done to help our economy? Let's assume COVID's done with. All right, we're post-COVID. We need to get back into the job-producing business development, things like that. What do you see city government doing in that realm?
Allowing people to be creative and have their own type of business, and not regulating everything. I think we regulate the creativity out of the market a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I know lots of people are entrepreneurs that are in regulated industries, and education is a great one. It's hard to be an entrepreneur in the world of education. It's just so regulated. And I'm not even going to ask you because I think I know your answer. Do you see a role for the faith community, like churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples, and local government, not as delivering government programs as much as being partners in the life of the community, and you all as the city partnering with them to help with reading after school and things like that? That the city really is not, it's not really in the wheelhouse, but I know they're working at it, but it seems to me something better done by congregations with people that know the people in the neighborhood and things like that.
Yeah, I think that they definitely have a role. There are places where the church steps up where the government doesn't.
Yeah.
So like you said, with the reading programs, there are things that we can do as volunteerists that decide, oh hey, yeah, okay, I can do that, or that's a program that we could support. I definitely feel like there needs to be a collaboration between the church and the programs that are available.
Now this is a tough question, but I'm going to ask it because I think it's important. There was an effort back in, I think it was the November election, they created a community control board for the police that did pass. Phil Noblet actually put it together. He's the city attorney, got on the thing. It's in the charter now. Then another group came along that wanted the one with more teeth. They had to get almost 5,000 signatures. They got 6,000. The election commission reviewed all 6,000 signatures. They reviewed it 4 times, and they were short 286. So it didn't quite make the ballot, but what they were calling for was a policing oversight committee made up of nonprofit organizations appointees. So none of which were from law enforcement, but they were just nonprofit people. And this thing failed, but it had got 6,000 signatures, so a lot of people were after it, and it wanted to reallocate the funds from the police, and it wanted to give this board the subpoena power, which is almost like, it's not quite the same, but it's almost like hiring and firing. And they wanted to have the ability to call, to determine what was fact in any allegation. Mm-hmm. If they determined it was fact, then the police had to deal with it as fact. Was that something you would have been in favor of?
I'm not anti-police, but I do feel like the trust of the police in the community needs to be mended. I do feel like the community needs to have a say.
Yeah.
And we need to focus on things like crimes that actually have victims as priority. So for every hour that we spend on a victimless crime, we're basically taking that away from finding a murderer or finding a thief. So those are the things that I think that we really need to be focusing on, instead of some laws like drugs. I mean, that's definitely something that shouldn't be top priority for.
Well, I think that they really want to get, unless they're violent, they really want to get the addicted person out of the policing thing, and the mental health people. Mm-hmm. They want to get them, the mentally ill people. They want to get them out of the jails and
yes.
things. It's not a good mix. I mean, but we don't really have there's been a massive failure to regression over the last 50 years about the mentally ill. It used to be there were places you would take them that weren't like jails, but now they throw these people in jails, give them some pills, send them back out. They don't take their pills, then they're back in. And I know that to be the case. And we've talked to the sheriff about that because he runs the jails around here.
Yeah, with that, I think that centralized planning doesn't work for everyone, and it doesn't work in every situation. So we really do need to focus on on getting those people in the help that they need, instead of throwing them in jail.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Now you're going to ask, and why is he asking me this question? We have 75. We have a supermajority of Republicans in Tennessee in the state legislature. It's very likely they will pass this year some type of pro-life legislation, especially for late term. It's probably going to be a late term abortion restriction, so past 6 months or something like that. Anyway, in other states when they've done this, local cities or counties, like they did with immigration, said, hey, we're a sanctuary city, we're not going to enforce that. So people have asked me to ask this of candidates, so if you're on the city council and they pass a state law that says, hey, we're not going to allow late-term abortions in Tennessee, would that be something that you would fight against, or would it be something you'd say, hey, that's the state law now, and I'm not going to do I'm going along with the state law?
No, my philosophy is that even though it's not for me, I can't make that decision for someone else. I don't think that the government has a very good view on this, because there's good faith in both sides of the coin. So I don't feel like that's something that can be legislated very easily.
Okay. How do you think, and we've talked about the COVID thing, so I'm not going to ask to bring that up. Second Amendment things. We're big hunting. We've got these stores that are all over the place selling hunting equipment, stuff like that. What's your position on the Second Amendment?
I love the Second Amendment.
Okay.
I think we need to be able to defend ourselves against our government.
Okay.
And that's why we have a Second Amendment.
And we've talked a little bit about the mentally ill, so I'm not going to go back into that, and the disabled. But we do have a problem in Chattanooga, talking about guns and things, with shootings. And some of it's gang related, some of it's not, but most of it is, and it's usually involving young men. And there's these drive-by random shootings, and they happen all the time. And Chattanooga actually is very high rated by the FBI as a violent city, and one of the most violent, believe it or not. And we hide this. We don't like to talk about it, and because we like to think of ourselves as a tourist town. But there's parts of town that are, you really, people would prefer to stay out. I mean, there was a shooting just a couple of months ago where 3 children, they say, were targeted, and they were a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 12-year-old. They were shot in one of these drive-by shootings. And the city has for years tried to figure out what to do about that. They never really have come to any conclusion, and it's really not a policing thing. The police can't race there and get in front of the bullet quick enough. I mean, it just can't happen. But yet it's a problem for the city, and it seems to be one that just doesn't find ready solutions. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I mean, I feel like we are overshooting when we get funding for being high crime. So it's almost like the government giving us funding for high crime is in relation to us having high crime. So once you take one of those things out of the equation, i.e. the government funding for high crime, we're not going to be shooting to get that high. We're going to be working to get out of that funding. So it's almost like the government funds us for having this problem, and then we have this problem because the government is continuing to fund us. Huh. So I feel like we really just need to get back into the community and start focusing on the family and building people up. I mean, we have to figure out why there's crime, and crime is normally happening because people are forgetting that there are other people.
Okay, one more question. Affordable housing, big issue. Gentrification has happened all over Chattanooga. Downtown, North Chattanooga, Main Street, now it's moving into East Chattanooga, Highland Park, and all up and down MLK, all up and down Main Street. So a lot of the homes that poor people could used to afford, or places to live, they're just not there. And so and the inventory on homes is low because the mortgage rates are so low. So it's hard to find a place to live, and so there's a real need for, I think that private enterprise can fill it, but I think also that the government can incentivize it by simply changing some codes and things like that. I mean, that's my opinion, but what is your view of the need for affordable housing?
I think you hit it on the head there with the code. There's codes. There's I know tiny houses are a big.
Oh, I love tiny houses.
I do too. I think that they're affordable and they're great, and we just kind of restrict them. We also have some restrictions on things like rental homes, right, that block people from making money whenever they do have those things. And so I definitely see tiny homes and deregulating some of the zoning issues that we have.
Yeah, good. I like your answers. Well, Rachel, any other last words from you that you'd like to address to the people looking?
Well, I definitely feel like we can work on things like civil asset forfeiture, and we can also work on things like deeming each other essential or non-essential. Start treating people like people. Love each other, and even if you disagree, it's good to have communication and collaborate.
Good. And we've been talking to Rachael Torrence. She's running for District 3, which is out in the Hickson area. And you can go to our place, HamiltonFlourishing.org. You'll be able to see her and hear this interview, and go to her website, which is RachelTDistrict3.com, which has been rotating on the screen while we've been having this conversation. And Rachael, thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it. Don't forget, voting day is March 2nd. And thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for being a listener or watcher of Hamilton Torrance.